So welcome, everyone. We're doing the Hidden Dimensions podcast, and what we do is we seek to uncover those perspectives, values, and techniques that give data science meaning in this ever-changing, ever-connected world. And we're really excited about the topic today. Today we're going to talk about what does data science and community-based data science for social good, have to do with success after graduation. And we're here with Brian Ferdman. He's a data scientist and senior financial analyst for CSX, which is a transportation company in Jacksonville, Florida. They do railways and rail transportation, many other things. So Brian, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So we're talking about those those hidden dimensions in data science work, and how those community-based perspectives can then kind of influence and inform how we're doing the work in a for-profit situation. And so you're actually at a for-profit organization, but you started with us as a student in the Florida Data Science for Social Good program as an intern there. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background, kind of like your history. How did you get connected to data science for social good? And what were you doing before that? And then now what are you doing? So just give us a kind of a quick rundown of your background.
Yeah, so I'm from here in Jacksonville, Florida originally. Mm-hmm. I went to Auburn University for my undergrad. I studied agricultural economics. Then I went off and I'd had a pretty unconventional career path. I was sort of a ski bum out in Colorado for a few years. Then after that, I was teaching English in Spain. And at that same time, I was working on a master's degree in data science here online from University of West Florida. While I was finishing up that master's degree at University of West Florida, I started to think, well, what's the next thing I'm going to do after all this? And so I started looking for internships and job opportunities. And I came across data science for social good here in UNF in Jacksonville. And, I thought it was perfect because I'm from Jacksonville, even though I wasn't living in Jacksonville at that time. And, just...
Were you in Spain or Portugal at that time?
That's right, yeah. I was in Spain, and I was teaching English to elementary school kids.
Right.
So I had been in Spain for almost a year at that point. Mm-hmm. And coming across DSSG, I thought it was like just this really cool opportunity that it was a chance for me to come home to Jacksonville. I kind of always felt like eventually I'm going to come home to Jacksonville. And, when I read that this program, it helps people in the community, it helps nonprofits, I was like, well, this is perfect, When I was thinking about getting into data science, I would always read books from, like the guys like Freakonomics, Malcolm Gladwell, those types. Mm-hmm. And, I was like, well, this is really this is what I want to do. Like, I want to make an impact with data. And so when I saw DSSG, to me, that was that opportunity.
Right. Yeah. So when you first started working in this like internship data science for social good, were there certain things that you expected from the program? Like you're like, okay, this, I'm expecting to do these kinds of things that then ended up confirming your expectations, and then maybe some other things that were surprising. Like what surprised you? What confirmed your expectations, and then what kind of surprised you about that program as you participated?
Definitely, I figured that data science was going to be, a team activity, something that we all got together. We got our heads together, our minds together, and we collaborated to solve a problem together. Mm-hmm. And once we got there, it was immediate that between Dan and Karthik and my teammate and the other teammates, we were all brainstorming together. We were all working together and getting closer and closer to solving these problems. So that definitely confirmed my my initial impression that this would be a team effort, a team sport together. The surprise, I think, is just how complicated these problems are. Like I said before, that I thought I like these books from Malcolm Gladwell and Stephen Levitt from Freakonomics, and I'm thinking I'm going to make this huge change. I'm going to make this huge impact, and the problems, as we say in the slogan at DSSG, they are wicked problems. They're extremely difficult. They're extremely complex. There's so many dimensions that work together. There's correlations and covariances that come together that how can you really parse out what the true answer is? And so, I think that I expected to come in making this humongous impact, but then along the way I learned even at a small impact, these little at a small level, these little impacts that are insights that we uncover can make a pretty large impact in the end.
Yeah, and I remember like during the presentation, we do an open to the public presentation at the end of the internship, and you were just great up there, just talking about like arts experiences and the education experience. And so, being an educator as well as a data scientist, doing a project about education and childhood learning, did that connection help in doing the data science?
Definitely, yeah. I would say that, like I said, I just spent the last year in Spain. I've been working with kids who were between probably about like kindergarten age up until 6th grade. And so, I got to see closely firsthand just like what's an arts program like at a school? What is it like? What are the challenges for teachers? What do the kids want? What do the parents want? I got to see all that. And this was in a different culture, in a different country. But, more or less, it's all the same human experience, that they all have the same wants and needs that we have in the United States. And so when I came to DSSG and started working with Cathedral Arts Project, which is based on getting arts into Duval County public schools, or give opportunities to kids to enrich their arts experience, it just went hand in hand. It was or it was like a glove in a hand, as I say. Right. That it was a perfect fit for me. It was definitely the right project for my personal background at that time.
Yeah, and so just for our audience, why don't you tell them a little bit about like the project? What were those data science things that you were doing with this community organization? So just for our audience, so Cathedral Arts Project, it's an arts education program. They support arts education for school-based school students, both over the summer and during the regular semester. And so they work with teachers and principals and administrators, getting all of those programs set up and supporting those programs. And really, the ultimate goal is to see students, grow and thrive through arts programming, but also in their academic areas as well. And so you're kind of coming in, you're getting this data. It's kind of messy, right? So just for our audience, why don't you go through a little bit of like, what are those data science things that you did with the Cathedral Arts Project?
Yeah, so I would say the start of the project from a data science perspective was just understanding the problem, talking with our business partners repeatedly, asking lots of questions, coming up with hypotheses, testing those hypotheses, at least from a question-asking perspective, not a data perspective yet. So we just wanted to get the total picture of what's going on with this problem. How do we think we need to address it? Is there a certain technique we have that we think might be the way to solve that problem? Then we took on their data. So they had a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and it was, sort of clean, but sort of messy. There was definitely some outliers in there. There was some inconsistencies, a lot of missing values. And so we had to definitely use some data science techniques to figure out, all right, how are we going to put all this data together? How are we going to make these tables, talk to these tables in a way that it all makes sense and it can answer multiple questions?
Yeah, so you all were looking at like what patterns existed among the schools. And in particular, the question was, how does an arts program like improve over time, right? So they were trying to give some information to their arts programs to say, oh, like here's what's typical. Like if I say, oh, I've got like 10 schools, 10 students doing artwork in my elementary school class, how does that kind of then relate to what other schools are doing? And then looking at those profiles and then seeing, is there any relationship between school engagement and arts engagement and educational outcomes as well. So just kind of, it's more like pattern matching, right? Looking for patterns in the data.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. That it was definitely, we wanted to see if there was a certain profile of a school, whether it goes from community engagement, how important art is in the school's overall governance, from the principal down through the PTA organizations. We wanted to see how involved students were with going on field trips and things like that. And we hoped that our hypothesis was that all these metrics together kind of help the students become a better student, a more yeah, like they had less attendance issues, less disciplinary issues, maybe higher academic scores. That was our hypothesis. And so we wanted to see if there's trends that go together with art success or art involvement and then academic success, things like that.
Yeah. So, so you have this like really, engaging experience. You're working on a community-based project, but then after graduation, then now you're looking for jobs, and then you found this position with CSX. How did that start? I mean, was it a position you applied for? Was it an internship that you started with CSX?
Yeah, so someone in my probably final 3 or 4 weeks in the Data Science for Social Good program, someone from LinkedIn actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, Brian, your portfolio or your resume looks great. Your LinkedIn profile looks awesome. We have this position in finance at CSX. We think you'd be a great fit for it. Would you be interested in applying for that job?" And so this was a job in the finance area. And, I was a little skeptical at first because, my initial background is not in finance. I would say, after going through this data science program, I was like, well, I feel like I'm a social scientist. I'm a data scientist. I don't know about finance, but when I interviewed for the job, they explained that, well, while this job is in finance, what we want are big data skills, large data processing, being able to make sense of messy data and clean it up. And so I was like, well, I think that does align with what my skill set is, and I think that would be a good start.
Yeah. And so when you got into the position, what were those skills? I mean, you mentioned some of them, but like, which ones did you find like were most valuable for you? Things that you had learned in your educational experience or through the DSSG program that you think that were most valuable?
The big one through the DSSG program that I learned that I think was most beneficial were almost more than hard technical skills are the soft skills that we developed. So being able to work with a business partner, understand what their needs are, what their problem is, communicate findings back and forth with them. Another was just understanding the project life cycle. That when you do your summer DSSG internship, it's a pretty quick, like, was it even 12 weeks?
Yeah, it was 12 weeks. 12 weeks, but it felt like maybe 5.
Yeah, so it's like a very quick 12 weeks, and like you start on week 1, and before you know it, it's week 11, and you're trying to wrap it up as quickly as possible. But this framework that they laid out for us at DSSG, I use it every day in my job currently, because a lot of the work I do now and then at that internship was project-based. And so I'm thinking, okay, these couple of weeks are data gathering, data cleaning, understanding the data. Then, spend a few weeks on data modeling, putting it all together. And then finally it comes to, presenting the data. And then that would be the other soft skill, talking about what I learned at DSSG, that coming into my now more professional job at CSX is that public speaking and getting in front of people and talking. I would consider myself pretty nervous, pretty awkward when it comes to getting up in front of crowds. So I appreciate that you said I look good up there, because I didn't feel good up there. But
no, it was great. Yeah, you did a great job.
But I get nervous, and I thought, well, when I'm a data scientist, and this is going back to school time, I was like, when I'm going to become a data scientist, I just want to sit back there with my math and do coding and just keep to myself. But at the end of the day, if you have good findings, you're going to have to get in front of some people and present those findings. And constantly since going to CSX, I'm having to get in front of a group of people, present my findings. Another thing is, for us as data scientists, we probably speak in jargon. Things are a little technical and really hyper analytical, and you're usually talking to a crowd that are not data scientists, that they have other expertise and other knowledges and skills. And so one of the hardest parts, but what you do learn in data science social good, is that you have to compact this intricate data that's all full of jargon and analytics and p-values and things like that, and say, how am I going to explain this to someone who's not a data scientist, who's not a technical person?
Right. Yeah, I remember when we were doing this project for CAP, I think, I don't remember what the particular technique was, but we were trying to explain this like multivariate analysis with multiple dimensions, and And then I think it was some sort of clustering algorithm. I don't
We
even
used
remember.
latent class analysis.
Okay, so we're using latent class analysis.
Some factor analysis
Right,
as well.
right. We're doing this analysis, and then we're like, okay, how do we explain this to teachers and arts teachers in a way that's going to like really make sense? And we spent, I don't know how much time working on that presentation just to get the right way to communicate those results. And I think the results, in the end, we found a good solution, a way that kind of made sense using, matching colors and things like that, just to really work on figuring out what's the best way to present this information and get the message across. And so, yeah, it's not an easy skill. It's something that I think takes time, takes practice, and it sounds like that's something that you're doing every day.
Yeah, definitely using that every day. And like you said, with just finding an example of matching colors and visualizing the data, that's also a huge challenge and probably a whole discipline or science in itself is
Right.
How do you present the data to people? How do you visualize data so that they can look at a screen and they can quickly make sense of what's going on here. I'm constantly making dashboards in Tableau, and actually we're making a switch to Power BI now, so I'm having to learn Power BI.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely in Tableau, like you can make the most crazy, intricate thing with worksheets all over the place and all kinds of filters and cool parameters. But at the end of the day, it's got to be something that someone who's not as technical as you, who doesn't know all the background work that you've done to get to that final answer, can look at it, know what they know, and say, this makes sense, or this tells a story to me that I can now make a business decision based on what you've told me, what your data is telling me.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of those hidden dimensions in the data science world is being able to communicate those findings in a clear way. And we sometimes think that complexity means sophistication, which means better. And so we could try to represent that complexity in its fullest form. But I think there's a lot of complexity and a lot of skill in being able to elegantly present complex information and bring it down into a way that our audience can digest, they can understand, and appreciate and use, right? And that's really the ultimate goal for our work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I get up in front of a group and I start presenting these ideas, like most recently I had to present kind of the same presentation about 3 times now. And every time I present it, I kind of, sometimes you'll see like, okay, there's kind of a flaw in my logic here. I think I need to come back to this particular thing or this idea. There might be a different way of going about it. And so you're always improving your models at all times. Even when you think the model is finished and you're ready to present it, once you get up there and present it and you've put those ideas together, you'll think, well, this actually, maybe we need to look at it from this perspective instead. Maybe we need to change how we say this or maybe how we calculate it. And then I think that it does come back to like what you said, Dan, that more complex isn't always better. There definitely is a lot of opportunity for some amazing complexity in data science, but at the end of the day, if it's something that is easy to explain to your audience and impactful, I think that's where you can have the most value.
Yeah, you bring up an important dimension in that, which is how presenting your work and trying to explain it to others might actually improve the work itself, right? Like as you're trying to explain, it's like, wait, how did we calculate that? What is it? Did we do that the right way? And then that can kind of feed back into the actual modeling process. So yeah, good point there.
Yeah.
So one thing about doing a data science for social good project is we get to see data that's connected to the social good. We get to see data that's connected to that human story. And I wonder if that plays a part in the work that you do. I mean, you're a financial analyst, right? You're working with financial data, but you also work with data about people, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the team that I'm on, they call it transportation and transportation finance. And so transportation finance in railroad lingo is essentially your conductors and the engineers. These are the people that operate the trains. These are the people that build the trains, get them from point A to point B. And so pretty much any data that I'm looking at, it involves people and it impacts people's lives. And so I think any decision I make, I hope that from the data science, like from what I learned from DSSG, that I'm always taking into account the human impact of any decision that we make, whether that's, focusing on the safety of our crews, if that's trying to give our crews a better work-life balance, making sure that they're home at night with their families. So any data that I look at, I'm always definitely looking at what is the human impact of these decisions that we make and the findings that we find in the data.
Yeah, I think for a lot of data scientists, our focus can be so much on the data, right? It's like we see the data, it's like, oh, finally, we have numbers, we can crunch the numbers. But recognizing that those numbers are connected to something bigger, something broader, right, is really valuable. So it's good to see that, like, even though you're a financial analyst, you're still kind of pulling in those perspectives. So now I want to just ask a very broad question, which is, so if you could dream, right? If you had your data science dream, what are those hidden dimensions or things that, like, if things would work out the way that you imagine they would in the data science world, what are those things that would really, like, make your life better?
Oh, yeah. If I had clean data, that would make my life infinitely better, because as I learned in school, as I learned in the DSSG program, you get in school, especially, you get all these clean data sets and you can model them all day long and find all kinds of cool things. But then I remember my professor at University of West Florida telling me that, well, the real job is 70% data cleaning, maybe 20% modeling, and then 10% presenting your findings. Right. And I would say, even at a large company like CSX, the data can be messy at times. And so I spend so much time trying to understand, well, what does this mean? Do these vague column names mean what we think they are? Can we exclude this data? Do we need to keep this data in? So I think if I had clean data where I could model till all day, if I was just modeling different machine learning algorithms all day long, I would be a happy guy.
Right. Yeah, and there's a part of me, and I guess it's just that that part of me that's curious about the world, that I enjoy, like, hunting down the missing data and figuring out, like, okay, why is this missing, and why is it here, and wait, these values look strange. Why did these values get this way? So I think there's, like, an investigator, detective in a way, a data detective, a part of me that really enjoys, like, looking into that data and figuring out what's going on. But I feel you so much about, like, sometimes.
Yeah, no, it is satisfying, like you said, to be the data detective, because there'll be times where, if I'm in our databases and I'm looking, through a schema that could have more than 100 tables in it or something, and like you said, that this one table has the exact column you need, but then maybe it doesn't have the key that links to this other table, and so now you've got to find one more joining column, and you do become that data detective, and it is a lot of fun at times. It makes you want to pull your hair out too at times, but it is enjoyable when you do put that data together. You've got your model, or you've got your clean data, and now you're ready to model it and move on to the next step. Yeah. So the data cleaning it's not all bad.
Yeah, there's that celebratory time, right? When it's like, okay, we've got the data we need. Now, okay, we can start doing modeling. And it feels like you've graduated, or you've...
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. You want to have some kind of celebration around it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thanks so much for being with us and sharing your perspectives, and really appreciate your guidance and your help. So you also are now serving as a mentor for emerging data scientists, and through our DSSG program. So I want to thank you for that as well. You're giving back to the community, even in your job now. So we appreciate the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be part of this data science community that we have here in Jacksonville and in Florida as a whole.
Yeah, that's right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us, and come back, see us again, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Hidden Dimensions.